Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Warhammer Summer. We're playing through a whole variety of Warhammer 40k games, and these are my first ones. And we started with Space Marine Anniversary Edition. Before we jump into that, I do want to let you guys know we are working with the British Heart Foundation. If you don't know, there's a long history of heart disease in my family. It's something I'm very aware of. You know, I've been trying to keep myself in better shape recently for that reason, so I can spend longer with my kids. And as such, we have had British Heart Foundation come here to the studio to do CPR lessons and update everybody on CPR if you need to do it. So they sent us a thing, which I think is great. See this QR code? If you scan this, you do like a 2 or 3 minute tutorial to refresh yourself on CPR. We have already had someone in the community save a life. I know, it's pretty incredible. Like 2 days after we had the nurse here doing stuff, and I did CPR on Fat Cat over there to bring him back, is someone used that knowledge to save their little cousin. So it is relevant. You never know when you're going to get called upon to try and do something to save someone's life. So if you scan this QR code, little 2 minute tutorial, you can actually see the video here of how to do CPR. It plays music and things like that. It's really fun. On top of that, just to let you know, anybody who does it, we will get a gifted sub to the channel. It's not like they're paying us up front. They're saying, hey, if people want to do this, cool, we'll throw a gifted sub to our live stream channel. So well worth doing. Really like these guys. We're going to work with them in the future because it's important, and it is global. Everybody in the world. So it doesn't matter what country you live in. They just want to spread the awareness and hopefully save some lives. That's what they care about. I like that. I like that a lot. So, pretty cool stuff. All right, let's move forward. I was at the end of the game. In fact, Chris came in and he was watching through the TDP that I recorded yesterday about where I was in Space Marine. He's like, bro, people are so mad. They're so mad because you were literally at the last boss. I was at the final level, about to do the last boss. I didn't know, obviously. I did suspect that I was feeling like we were getting to the end, but for all I knew, we were then going to move on to a different mission and the game would continue. I want to talk about this a little bit because in total, in fact, let me check my Steam stats here on Space Marine. I kind of think we did this in, not that I was trying to speedrun it or anything, 7.3 hours for the main campaign. 7.3 hours. Wonderful. Wonderful. I cannot tell you, certainly as a streamer, but as just a video games enjoyer, how much I adore a game that knows what it's about and is not seemingly overly influenced by execs, by people who just want line to go up and they're like, we need engagement metrics. We need them to be around for a while. And it was how I grew up with video games. It really is. Like, you can play, and I've gone through all the Final Fantasies, as you all know. Some of them are like 10 hours long. And my favorite of all, which was Final Fantasy IV, I think is like 8 or 9 hours. Something like that. Wonderful. Concise. There's no fat on the game. If I think of, like, not to throw them under the bus too much, but Assassin's Creed, or most of the modern titles where there's just all this fat and busy work attached to them. Mad Max would be a great example of those kind of games, where there's just all this extra bleh that's not adding to the overall atmosphere. It's just stuff to go out, collect scrap, collect resource, collect X generic currency in order to do X and Y, and it's not particularly engaging, it's not difficult. In fact, most of the things involve just being at the right location in the vast open world to find the creature or whatever it is you're looking for. And it's not how I grew up with video games, because we predate internet and DLC. It was just a case of, this is a really good idea, and you could tell that the devs, the passionate devs, were like, well, this isn't worth us making this part of the game because it's not very good. Every section needs to be incredible, and Space Marine was such a great return to that. I'm just going to spoil it now. I rank this game as an S+ tier, one of the highest awards I personally can give a video game. And the multiplayer, rock solid. Obviously, it's an older game, so the multiplayer is not going to be there these days, but goddamn, so good. Graphically holds up really well. Anything that's like 360 plus, Xbox 360 plus, still holds up totally fine today. It looks glorious. It's brutal. It's amazing. Enjoyed the hell out of it. Let's talk about the story, though. I didn't mention the story too much yesterday of Captain Titus arriving on this planet, infested by the orc swine. We must drive back the filth, and we arrive in the midst of the local guardsmen, the local defense of this forge world, who are just run out. And it established so quickly is that we don't really care about human life, which is a very solid and consistent theme throughout 40k, is human life, meh, replaceable. People are always going to be making babies. They're always making babies. One thing we do have in abundance is human life, and they're not important, but it establishes, like, they have a Titan on the planet, and that is valuable. That is something, because they want to, like, exterminatus it, and we can't just exterminatus the planet and eradicate everything. There's a Titan on there, and we need that because we can't make more. So that's important. Just forget the millions of lives on the planet. That's irrelevant. What we do want is this Titan. And that's your mission, is you are pulled away from another area to go and make sure the Titan is secure, and that's your mission. Throughout this, we meet the Inquisitor, who's up to something. He's harnessed a piece of the warp, and he's creating a power source, which could be a devious weapon, and he's influenced by chaos because he opened his mind in the warp, and the chaos seeped in. And now he's created this power source for chaos in order to open the chaos portal. So we get rid of the orcs, we defeat their boss, which scatters them. Without the orc war boss, they scatter into different factions, so they no longer a threat. Then we use the Titan itself to shoot the tower where the dimensional portal is into the warp, which is letting chaos in. We close that off. And then our finale is to kill the chaos boss Nemeroth, who is a big chaos space marine. He's wonderfully animated and all that kind of stuff, and we have to kill him. The final boss fight was a little tough. I wiped a couple of times on it because the enemies, particularly the floating caster enemies, if you're in line of sight of those, they will do, I assume it's like a health bar and a half of damage. They will drain your entire shield, and then they will do about 50% of your actual raw HP in one hit, essentially. It's a channeled hit, so it's over time, so you can get out of line of sight. But if you get caught out and you're blocked by other enemies, other ads running around, then you will get stopped. Curious, this was very 2011. I did talk yesterday, is that it's very hard to make a good FPS boss. They have done it. It is possible. We've seen it in a few games. But it's not easy to create a good FPS boss. And certainly, well, this is third person. But, like, you get the idea. Shooty boss. But the problem is, 2011, they're still sort of working through that. And it was also the tail end of the era of the QTE. QuickTime events, as we call them, QTEs, where you just press a button prompt and a cinematic happens, was a huge thing for about 4 or 5 years, and then it petered out. Like, someone came up with the idea. I can't remember the first game to do it. I did know. And then everybody was like, this is great. We can create these, like, really cinematic set pieces with some gameplay elements. I mean, it goes all the way back to, like, Dragon Quest, like, early Amiga stuff, which was basically QTE. So it's been around for a while, but then somebody was like, okay, we can make these... The problem the developers have, right, is we have this really cool idea, but it really doesn't fit into the gameplay of the game, so what do? We could do something really epic, but it's not going to conform to the gameplay boundaries of running around and shooting. QTEs. And that way we can set it up so that everything we want it to have is happening, so it's basically a movie, and then there's a little bit of player interaction via just pressing the right button prompt at the same time. So the final boss is 3 horde mode waves, which are pretty tough. Took them out. And then the actual Nemeroth fight is not fighting Nemeroth, it's a QTE. And it's very cool. It is very cool. It's like proto Final Fantasy 16. Like very proto Final Fantasy 16. But it's great. And I forgave it, even though, yeah, I would like to have a good boss fight, but at the same time, I know they can't make a good boss fight. We saw that with the Orc boss. And honestly, they wanted a big finale, and it's the very end of the game. Like, there's nothing else here. And they hadn't QTE'd at any really other point in the game. The only point you could argue is a QTE is if you have to melee execute a larger enemy. You just have to kind of struggle with them because they're, you know, very strong. That's it. It wasn't really like left mouse button, right mouse button, F, space bar, like this was. It wasn't like a full, like, Dance Dance Revolution, Parappa the Rapper type thing. It was more a case of this is a full QTE, and the other things in the back were a bit of interaction to simulate the struggle you're having with the stronger enemies. So I was fine with it. One QTE to give a cinematic ending to this fight. Absolutely phenomenal. Totally, phenomenal is the wrong word. Passable. Passable. Phenomenal game, passable ending to the game. But that's not where it ended, because I was like, is that really the end? Because we haven't wrapped up some story threads. And I was like, are they going to leave those threads dangling? And we'll get to the sequel in a minute. It finished. Our guy survives. He's injured. He's wounded. And Mira, who's the really strong female character, and she's great. Loved this character since the start. It's like, so, you know, you are vulnerable. And then a new Inquisitor arrives with our friend Leandros. I was really hoping they would wrap up the Leandros thread. Leandros is a rookie. He's green. He's very by the book. And according to the Codex Astartes, you can't deal with chaos without being influenced by chaos. And he has watched Captain Titus deal with chaos very regularly, despite the fact that Captain Titus has stopped chaos invading and has defeated the Chaos Space Marine in charge, Nemeroth, and wiped out Endless Chaos. According to the Codex Astartes, there is no way you don't have some influence with the chaos, and Captain Titus is somehow resistant to the chaos influence. And that makes Leandros very suspect, because in the book, that shouldn't happen. And the book is the rules of the Emperor, and we follow the rules of the Emperor, leading to him tattletaling. Screw this guy. I would have happily ground this guy's face into a chainsaw after what our character has been through, only to see him turn up on a spaceship with a fresh Inquisitor because he's tattletailed to the Imperium and they've sent an Inquisitor. And Inquisitors very fundamentally see... Inquisitors see heresy everywhere. And they see it here. And they really... I've got to say, the storytelling in this game of establishing how the 40K universe works, certainly with the Imperium, is really so well done, which is why it's an S+ game. Because in a couple of lines of dialogue, it's established that the Inquisitor just puts Captain Titus in a no-win scenario. It's like, either you come with me and submit to my questions or Inquisition, or we will just de facto assume that you, everybody you've dealt with, and their families, and their families, in fact, everybody on this planet is influenced by chaos because you're not agreeing to do what we say. But Captain Titus is a strong space marine, and he knows the rules, and he understands that when the Inquisition says that, they're just going to murder everybody. That's what they're going to do, to root out the chaos corruption. To be sure, the only way to be sure, Arthas, is to kill everybody, and that's what they're going to do. Because Mira's like, just don't do it. Like, screw this guy. You saved the world, right? You saved the planet, you fulfilled your mission, you secured the Titan. Like, screw this guy. And he's like, they will murder absolutely everybody. I know what's going to happen here. They will murder everybody. So that is not a viable plan. And turns and walks away. I really love the dialogue to Leandros, where it's foreshadowed earlier in the game. It says, the Codex Astartes is our guiding principles. It's our rules. However, Space Marines need to be able to think for themselves in order to be the most effective tools of the Emperor. And you have failed, Leandros. You have failed. As he walks off into the distance, and we get blue-balled hardcore as the story just ends there. This game came out in 2011. 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was sat with my live stream and watching the latest games that are coming out. So we form our list of what looks exciting. What are we going to ditch? What are we probably going to play? Things like that. And a trailer played that I'd forgotten for Space Marine 2. And I remember my entire live audience losing their goddamn minds that Space Marines 2 was coming. And me going, because I had no context. I wasn't into Warhammer. I had not played the other Space Marine. I had no context for what was going on. And everybody was like, you need to watch the trailer now. You need to watch the trailer for Space Marine 2. And I was like, wait, Space Marine 2 isn't out yet? Like, surely they made the success of this game. They made one like in 2013. And like, dude, we've been waiting 13 years to find out what happened to Captain Titus. And I don't know. It feels like the Final Fantasy stuff. It feels like FF14, where like I'm like, oh, I got to experience all this story back to back. And everyone else is like, bro, we waited 6 months to the resolution of this story. And it was like ripping my hair out to get it. And I rewatched the trailer, and I gotta say that feeling that I had of Captain Titus stepping out, and then everybody pointing out the little details, which I'm now learning as I venture into the Warhammer universe, is like, okay, he's got 4 pips now, so he's like much older. He's got a chain around his wrist, which indicates the Inquisition has punished him in some way. And he's also been demoted. He's no longer a captain. And you could tell by his regalia that he's no longer a captain. So he's been demoted, but he still fights for the Emperor. He still fights for the Imperium. And we don't know what happened. But, like, this is super, super exciting. So I'm now fully on board for Space Marine 2, which comes out in September, because Hopefully, my hope and dreams here are that it's not been modernized too much. There's some gameplay stuff out there, so it looks brutal. It looks good. We've had Doom 2016. We've had Doom Eternal, which obviously spawned, you know, was influenced by Space Marine. So they advanced the genre. So they're going to go forward, and they've probably seen some of the stuff that's happening with Doom in the past that's coming out in the future. And other games and what they've done. I just hope they're not too influenced. There's some stuff of, like, painting. I saw in the trailer, it's like you can paint your own Space Marine, which makes sense. And this is for, like, seemingly the triple-player co-op. But they're going to do 2 campaigns. The single-player campaign and then the triple-player co-op. So I'm going to, obviously, looking to try out both with what's going on there. Ultimately, our first game in Warhammer Summer, Space Marine. I played the Anniversary Edition. I played it on Steam. S+ tier. Absolutely phenomenal. Loved it. Concise, to the point, no fat, brutal, constant stream of just power increase without, like, wasting it and being like, oh, you're super powerful now you've just played the rest of the game. It continues on, and really well-paced, great storytelling. You don't need some pre-knowledge of the Warhammer universe to enjoy this game. If you have some, you'll pick up on things that make it better, for sure, but you're going to have a great time regardless. Absolutely loved it. Our next game on the list, my friends, as recommended by you, will be Warhammer Dawn of War 1, which I think is 2004. It's going to be old school, but let's kick into it. See you tomorrow. Bye.